Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into the story of Associated Road Carriers, or ARC. They are an absolute giant in the logistics world, but they've got this radical secret at the core of their 50-year run of dominance.
So let's just jump right in with the big question. How in the world do you build an 1,800 crore rupee empire in an industry that's basically swimming in debt without ever taking a bank loan? It sounds impossible, right? This story completely flips conventional business wisdom on its head.
And get this, that number? Zero. Total bank debt. No, that is not a typo or some kind of accounting trick. For 50 years, zero. This isn't just a number on a balance sheet. It's the guiding principle, the core philosophy that turned a single truck into an undisputed industry titan.
So how on earth did they pull this off? Well, to really understand their secret, we first have to kind of peel back the layers on the story everyone thinks they know about ARC.
You know, the easy assumption, the one most people make, is that ARC just got lucky. They simply rode the huge wave of India's booming economy and infrastructure growth. But the real story, it's so much more interesting than that. It has almost nothing to do with luck and everything to do with a dramatic split, a rebellion that happened over 50 years ago. That's where things get really good. So let's talk about the 1972 rebellion. See, ARC wasn't your typical startup, born in a garage. No, this company was forged in a crisis. It was a full-on, calculated rebellion against the biggest player in the game at the time.
It was called the Great Split, and it was exactly what it sounds like. A whole team of ambitious young professionals led by a man named Ram Kumar Goyal just up and left the biggest company around, the Transport Corporation of India, to start their own thing. But this wasn't just about starting another company. It was ideological. They wanted to build a business on a totally different foundation, trust. And in that industry, at that time, that was a radical idea.
So look at this. The big guys were all about huge capital, massive fleets. The industry ran on certain, let's call them, norms. But these rebels, they walked out with nothing, zero capital. So they couldn't compete on the number of trucks they had. They had to compete on something else. And they chose something that nearly put them out of business. Uncompromising ethics, a no-bribe, fixed system culture.
And that really sums it up, doesn't it? They couldn't compete on fleet size, so they had to compete on ethical reliability. That one single choice, born out of pure necessity, became the bedrock for their entire company. It was a massive gamble, but it was the only card they had to play.
Okay, so how did this rebellion against the status quo actually shape their business model? This is where we get into the real genius of their strategy.
Here's the thing. ARC was playing a completely different game. While competitors took on huge loans to buy more trucks, which, by the way, are assets that lose value over time, ARC focused on building something far more valuable. They went asset-light, zero debt, and focused on building their network.
They even had a name for it, Financial Stoicism. And the idea is pretty simple. Every single bit of their growth was funded by the money they actually earned, what we call internal accruals. This commitment to being debt-free meant they had to be incredibly disciplined about where every single penny went.
And here's how they did it. Instead of sinking money into a massive owned fleet, they invested in building a sprawling network of over 590 outlets. These are the hubs, the critical control points in the supply chain. The trucks, whether they owned them or contracted them, were just the spokes.
And that right there is the core lesson. It's so brilliant. Control the nodes, the warehouses and the touch points, and the links, the trucks will naturally follow. Their power doesn't come from owning the trucks. It comes from owning the infrastructure.
But that brilliant financial strategy was only half of the equation. Their real, lasting competitive advantage is, surprisingly, all about people. Service with a human touch. Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds like a cheesy marketing slogan, right? But for ARC, this is a core operational principle with a very real, measurable financial payoff.
By investing heavily in their people, they built what they call an internal ownership culture. And in an industry famous for high employee turnover, ARC has incredibly low churn. We're talking about staff who have been with them for over 30 years. Just imagine the depth of knowledge and loyalty that creates. It's a hidden moat that technology alone just can't replicate.
And the financial result is striking. Because their experienced team handles cargo with more care, their damage and loss rates are significantly lower than the industry average. That translates directly to lower costs and happier clients, a powerful cost advantage created by people, not machines.
They also got smarter about the kind of cargo they moved. Instead of getting stuck in the low-margin race to the bottom, they diversified into high-margin specialized services. They became the go-to carrier for complex jobs in the power and steel sectors, the really tough stuff.
So where does all of this leave ARC today? They're a debt-free giant, built on ethics and smart finance, and they're now preparing for their next chapter.
Their steady, disciplined growth continues, with revenues projected to hit nearly $400 million in 2026. In an age of explosive, blitz-scaling growth, this is something different. It's solid, it's profitable, and it's built to last.
It's just an incredible journey, from that single rebellious truck in 1972 to today. And now, after 50 years, the company is transitioning its leadership, bringing in a new generation of directors tasked with modernizing the business and securing that hard-won legacy.
If there's one key takeaway from ARK's incredible story, it's this. In a high-cost, high-risk industry, financing smarter can be infinitely more powerful than simply moving faster. Financial independence gave them the stability to outlast their rivals.
And that leaves us with one final, provocative question. ARC's asset-light, human-first model mastered the physical world for half a century. But can it compete with a digital-first rival like Delivery, which is built on data and algorithms? That's the battle that will define the next 50 years.